Hey, what's up, guys? A real thick with three C's Friday for you today on personhood. Are you a person? Sounds like a funny question, but actually, the term person has a precise definition in classical philosophy that we have to consider. And that definition is an autonomous moral agent. So, let's break that down. To be autonomous means that you are an individual who has a unique identity. Now, this doesn't negate that you are part of a group, part of a community, part of some social order. No, it still maintains that, but that you occupy a particular space at a particular time, and you have a unique identity that is different from that of the other individuals within that group, family, social structure, etc. You're moral. You can distinguish between right and wrong and make judgments on the basis of that distinction. And that we, should choose right over wrong. But you have free will. You're allowed to make a decision one way or another. But we have that ability. We are people of God. We have transcendental moral power. And you're an agent. You can act freely on the basis of those judgments and willful decisions. So, what kinds of things are persons? Well, not babies. Babies are totally dependent on their mothers, on their parents, and they really have no autonomy because they're not self-aware, They have no ability to choose between right and wrong, and they have no agency because they're not citizens, and they haven't gotten to the point of being able to act freely on any decisions because they can't make decisions to begin with. Little kids start to show signs of this, and I think that a child becomes a person basically as soon as the mother lets go, or starts to develop personhood in these three ways. As the mother loosens the ties of or the grapple that she has on her child, the control that she has over her child. And the father too, but I think the mother is more crucial here. So a kid starts to gain autonomy when the mother drops the idea of equality in the home. Once she stops treating siblings the same, then the kids start to realize, okay, I'm different from my brother or my sister. I can kind of actually, I'm my own person, in a sense. And then, only then do they start to develop moral judgment and think for themselves about things once they stop being treated as simply a part of a unit, And then they start to develop agency once the mother basically backs off, lets the child go out and play, unsupervised in the neighborhood, in nature, whatever the case may be. That child is able to act freely on decisions that he or she has made as part of a social group with their friends or their other siblings or what have you. So are you, as an adult, a person? Well, it may depend on your upbringing and, how coddling your parents were, how much control they enforced over you or your guardians, whoever raised you. But one way we can identify whether or not you're a person is by looking at your political leaning. And, remember, to a large degree, if you don't think super deeply about political issues, which means that you think beyond the political surface level of analysis, if you dig deeper into the moral questions, the philosophical questions, psychological questions of that are necessary for really understanding political problems, then you are, until that point, going to be a slave to your own natural inclinations. It is a psychological fact. You vote in accordance with your temperament, right? And your temperament, your first impulse, doesn't always give you the right decision about how to vote, what to support or not to support. So there's a degree of self-awareness that's really required here, and a person is someone who is quite self-aware, who is able to think for themselves and able to make moral decisions and act on those decisions, right? But as a baseline, when we look at conservatives, Conservatives generally, although their restraints may be too tight at times, they are fundamentally seeking to maintain and conserve the concepts of home, community, and identity. So the home is important because of all the, nurturing points that I just described. Community is important because you have to serve a role in some way, in your own unique way, in order to be useful to other people and to be good to other people. And you have to have a sense of identity in that. A sense of purpose and meaning comes from, embracing your uniqueness within that larger social or familial context. So conservatives, their intention, whether or not they do this well in practice, their intention is to conserve the concepts of home, community, and identity, which are all crucial for this concept of personhood. Now, when we look at progressives, leftists, there are three things, each of which dispel of one of these essential parts of personhood. First thing, group identity. Group identity politics, by definition, disregards autonomy. They try to tell you that you are nothing more than simply a part of a group. Your identity is fundamentally tied to part of a group on the basis of some superficial hereditary trait that is out of your control. So you have no identity outside of being black, being straight, being white, being gay, etc., etc. Right? However you identify yourself as part of a group is who you are. So autonomy doesn't exist. Morality doesn't exist in progressive ideals, generally speaking, because they are atheistic. So they want separation of church and state because they don't want to deal with church at all, because they're atheistic. And so their morality, yet they make a lot of moral claims, and their morality ends up being built in to their political and social ideals. It's built into their politics. And it's given. You're not allowed to question it. If you are progressive, you have to believe A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so there's no freedom of moral thought there. There's no moral judgment. All the moral judgments that you need are built into the politics. So third, it suppresses agency in a number of ways. I mean, this is from legislation to, increasing control and the size of the government, because again, the state is the arbiter of moral truth when it comes to progressive and leftist ideals. So legislation to censorship, on the social level and the social media level too. That's a suppression of agency, of personal expression, and to political correctness. That's to control the lexicon. So they've already done away with your ability to make moral decisions and think for yourself. So then they change the language in order to suit that moral framework that they've built from nothing, in order to try to change the way you think and just, funnel you into a sheeply little pen to do whatever it is that they say. So anyway, I would say, and so that, does away with your agency. So I would say that you're in great danger of sacrificing your personhood by being progressive, by, hopping on board with this political fashion nonsense, by being a leftist. But regardless of your political leaning, by being a political activist at all and not thinking more deeply about these issues, on a philosophical and moral and spiritual level, that you are also sacrificing your personhood because you're not going beyond that surface political group identity level in order to express your personhood. And that is possible on the right and in conservative groups as well. So you have to be careful that you're not playing their shallow game. If you can see beyond what it is they see, then you're more likely to, use that good moral judgment and just really to back off and not involve yourself with it. Only, take care of yourself and control the things that you can control. Make things best for yourself, for your family, for the community that you can touch locally, that you do have actual influence over, And of course, I always recommend this book by Stephen Hicks. It's called Explaining Postmodernism. It talks about where we are today politically, socially, ideologically, philosophically, on the basis of where we've come from. He takes us through the years of Western philosophical thought from the Enlightenment, from before the Enlightenment, really, all the way up until now. And, you know, these suppressing sort of social constructionist philosophies that guide progressive politics have really been dispelled of long ago in honest philosophical circles. So, you know, a lot of people say that philosophy doesn't make progress, but actually philosophy is so far ahead of what we actually put into practice. It's disgusting when you have that knowledge of where we are today and how far behind we are the best philosophers, you know? So anyway, are you a person? Well, look at your politics, but not only your politics, but how you involve yourself in those political groups that you claim an identity with. And know that if you're truly a person, your core identity is nothing other than a thing unto itself, right? And on a secondary level, it's really how you relate to the people who you are closest to, who you love, who actually matter, who you have influence over and who actually have influence over you. And it's about how you manage yourself in those contexts. And if you do so in a way that thinks critically, thinks for yourself at every cross in the roads, then congratulations, you are a person, regardless of the nuances of what you believe. But if you're just jumping on the bandwagon, if you're going with the flow, regardless of the side that you're on, you're not a person. There are a lot of you out there, so be careful, educate yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.